So you are from, is it Hertfordshire?
Well, I'm from Southall.
Okay, Southall,
Yeah,
West.
people don't believe me when I say that. Like, you really? I'm like, yeah. And then I moved to Hertfordshire 3 years ago. So
Okay.
I've lived in Southall and like Hounslow, West London for my whole life, really.
Okay, it's been a good move for you.
Yeah, I mean, like I do miss sort of like being basically in India, like in Southall. It's quite it's quite different. But where I live now in Hertfordshire, like the Gurdwara is like 2 minutes away. It's
Oh,
basically,
nice.
kind of like it's quite diverse.
Hmm.
Where I recently moved from in Hertfordshire was like countryside, like what was it, 10 houses, and then just fields and animals, and I loved it. It was beautiful. It was so different.
Mhm.
But Hertfordshire's great. It's so green and so like natural. I definitely prefer the kind of pace of life and the driving compared to West London, where everyone's just like rude. Like you're rude, isn't it? Like, it is what it is. I'm
No
sure
one's
it's the
letting
same
you
in
out.
East, like yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I used to be in East London and we used to have Green Street. So
Yeah.
we all know what that's like. But now more near Essex as well. So I think as we get older, we just want more peace.
Yeah, trust me, like the country life is for me. I'm ready.
Tej, I want to know all about you. And I want to find out a little bit about your childhood,
Mhm.
how you grew up, some of your schools, your education, some of
Mhm.
your first jobs, and see what that was like for you
Mhm.
and see, your path to success, really.
Mhm.
Because we know where you've ended up, but that's not where it started, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. I think it's important to kind of like look at these things. I think my upbringing was quite normal. Like middle class family, money wasn't an issue. It wasn't in abundance, but it was never like, oh, we can't have that. I didn't really ask for much either, so it wasn't like I was like, "Mummy, can I have a Lamborghini?" When I was like 12. It was kind of, I just learned. And this is a cultural thing as well, like to save,
Yeah.
not to spend that much.
Okay.
And so actually, growing up, it was comfortable. It wasn't. I didn't have hardships. I didn't really have adversities with money. I think I had adversities with my parents divorced when I was, I don't know how old, but 19, 20 years ago. So yeah, I was about 10-ish, maybe a bit younger. And that's probably the biggest adversity I had.
Yeah. How did that affect you?
Well, to be fair, like at the time, because I was so young, I don't really, you just sort of think, okay, what does that mean? Like, okay, it's cool. But now as an adult, I think if it happened now, you can
Mm,
process it, you can ask, you can understand.
mm,
But as a kid, it just sort of, yeah, you just sort of like, all right, don't really get it. But I think that's also an issue because then it kind of, you don't get it and then it stays in your mind and it like
mm.
can create certain behaviors or certain characteristics or certain habits in you that are not necessarily good. You can create good ones as well, but I think you can create negative ones. So I think growing up, I was very angry. I was very like I got into trouble so much. Like my mom would get calls, and she's a head teacher herself,
Oh,
and she's
wow.
like, "You are not coming to my school. Yeah, you stay at that school.
You give me a bad rep.
Yeah, she's like, and you stay where you are." And like she'd always be getting calls. He's in detention. He's done this. He's done that. So I would say the divorce biggest thing that it did, well, I assume was cause that anger. I mean, I don't know. It
Mm.
could have happened either way, but for me, it seems quite obvious. Like big life event, angry childhood. It probably caused it, but I'm not a therapist, so I don't know.
Yeah. So how did you manage that state?
As a kid, I didn't. As a kid, you just smash stuff and you run around and you get in trouble and you're like, okay, and I wasn't very social. Like now, I'll go in a room, not know anyone, and at the end of it, I'll know a lot of people partying. With, like I'm very, very social now and an extrovert. But then I'd say I was an introvert, like on the other end of the spectrum of like being introverted.
Wow.
And now a lot of the time I'm like totally extroverted. So I didn't manage it as a kid. I didn't.
Wow. Wow. Like how do you go from one end to the other? Because I can see people making some sort of improvements.
Yeah.
So if I'm a quiet person, then I might, message one or two people extra and maybe now's the right time and oh hi by the way and oh he wasn't so bad so I
Yeah.
can take the next step. But how do you go from that to being probably like, one of the loudest in the room now? Like.
Yeah. You know what? That's a really good question. I've never really been asked that or thought about that. I think, I mean, perhaps I was always an extrovert, but the anger and the pain of the divorce maybe masked my real personality. So maybe that introversion and that quietness and that maybe that wasn't even like that was just a mask. That was blocking what was actually behind it. It wasn't actually who I was. That's sort of maybe one answer I can think of. The second is, I think, just growing up, having positive influences around me, reading the right things, my parents, telling me to study, telling me to do this. I think having those influences changed that. And then I suppose coming out of my shell and maybe removing that mask as I met certain people at like sixth form and then like uni and then those kind of things. And I think it's like with anything, you experience something and then you're like, I like that or I didn't like it, right? You eat something, you're like, oh, never again. Or you're like, I'm having that. And it was the same thing. I think I experienced what it was like to have fun and to be open and chilled. And I was like, yeah, I like that. And I think that's
Mm,
how our personalities can be shaped, right? We have an experience, we decide something,
mhm.
and then we go from there. And I think it's like trial and error, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, who were some of the people that you looked up to at the time? So, when things weren't going so well, who did you look up and say, I want to be like that person, or that's a role model, or even the fact that, do you know what, out of everyone, I'm going to listen to you for some reason?
You know what? It'd probably be like my grandparents, like both sets, because they're not like traditional Punjabi grandparents where they're like, I won't say traditional, but like there's some which can be quite backwards and some which can be quite old school in their mentality. And they do have a little bit of that, but I love that. And that's just part of the charm and the character. But generally, they're quite accepting and they're quite progressive. And I think growing up, whilst maybe I was angry at my parents, the people who were like parents, but who were not, because like grandparents, they always treat you, they always give you one extra roti, they always like try and fatten you up, right? And I think I kind of like the emotion went past the parents because maybe there was anger there and went to the next parent, which is the grandparent.
Yeah.
So for me, and again, I've never really thought about this. They would be the people that I listened to, who I behaved with,
Yeah.
who I wanted to see the most. And to this day, I've got fine relationship with my parents now, but I'm always like more with my grandparents.
Hmm.
And so I think it was them because you know what? Even to this day, I don't have like a business idol. Some people say, oh, Elon Musk or Bill Gates. I'm just like, yeah, that's nice, but I just don't really care. I'm just not interested. Yeah, I look up to certain people and say, you know what, your podcast, wow, like I love how you did that, or your brand is really strong. But there's no one that I'm like on my bedroom wall or like in my office and I think, yeah, I want to be that. I've never had that. I think what I look for is myself in 5 years. That's who I look up to. Who am I going to be in 5 years? And is that someone that I can look up to? So yeah, it'd be grandparents growing up, still is. And then they're the only people I probably really listen to. If they tell me off now, like I gotta do it. If my mum says something, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm an adult. Leave me alone.
Leave me alone,
Yeah.
bastard. So what I'm sort of getting is look at the person in the mirror, and that should be your biggest sort of competition. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, be yourself because everyone else is taken, right? That's what they say.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, like competing with others, I think is good, and it works. Of course, it works, right? Competition works, but there's a certain point where it is ego based and it's shallow, and it only gets you so far. Like, oh, they're lifting that at the gym. Oh, I'm gonna lift more than them. They're lifting that, and then guess what? You injure yourself. Like,
Yeah.
so there's a certain limit to I think competing with others, but with yourself, you can. I mean, I suppose you're always winning, depending on how you look at it.
I think it's important to stay in your own lane because we all have our own thoughts,
Hmm.
and there's different things that drive us. I might like chocolate, you might like vanilla. So what's the point of fighting over the same thing when
Yeah,
probably we don't even want the same things,
yeah, of
So
course.
it's okay to be you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I think it took me a long time to sort of realize that because I wanted to be like other people or be
Mm.
liked in a room or wanted, but now I realize maybe I was just in the wrong rooms.
Yeah, and I think, it's normal to feel like that. Like, especially in today's world, like in 2023, where you open your phone, everyone's perfect, everyone's hot, everyone's like driving a nice car, everyone's got a watch. You're like, why am I not that? So, like, it's so easy to do that right now. So I get it.
I think when we look at these things, we always just want the end goal,
Yeah.
So you look at somebody who's in the gym and you want the six pack.
Hmm.
Yeah, you see somebody in a nice car and you want the car.
Hmm.
And I think the problem is we're focusing on the wrong thing.
Hmm.
If you want a six pack, you're gonna want to love the gym.
Yep.
You got to love the process,
Mm-hmm.
because then it doesn't feel like work to you anymore. It's not
Yeah.
like you're working for a six pack, because I know I've got a six pack before, but I was just doing it for a competition, to get on stage. 3-4 months later, them abs were gone because I just wanted to do it for the competition, and I thought, I'm gonna show the world that I'm not a fat boy anymore. Because growing up, I did have them 1 2 rotia from my grandparents.
Trust me, I've been there. Trust me.
So I could, like, my belly would hang over my belt, but I didn't know it. But getting bullied for that, I really wanted to prove to the bullies later on, because they're all your friends on Facebook after, and I wanted to say, hey, look at me on stage. And then I realized, um, the reality hit, and I'm just a piece of meat on a stage, really. I've had to look down on these judges to show them, like, my delts, my rhomboids, my lats, my back, my legs, whatever. And I've allowed you to treat me like a piece of meat. Did it feel good once I was up there? No, it didn't. Was I happy I had abs? Well, actually, in that state of mind, I was grumpy as hell because I couldn't eat some of the
I was
stuff.
gonna say,
Do you know what I mean? Like, and you had to dehydrate yourself from water for 3 days. So it wasn't sort of the best experience. So the takeaways that I'm hearing from you and from myself, Tej, is, enjoy the process, stay in your own lane, listen to yourself, trust yourself. Because I believe we all have a gift. Because I've had you, other guests on, myself, is what I'm seeing. We've had the start has been very normal. You haven't told me that you've had a silver spoon in your mouth or anything of that nature, but I know what we're going to find out, that you've created, a lot of multiple streams of income, passive income, and it's all possible, really. So tell us a little bit about school in terms of the academic side. Was you high
mm.
achieving? Was you low achieving? In the middle?
I think with
Um,
GCSEs, I started off chilling, playing too much Call of Duty, like standard. And then my mum, she does this thing, she still does it to this day, and I also do it to people and to anyone. She'll let you, so for the first exams or whatever, she'll say, okay, you do your studying that you think is right. Yeah, you carry on. Yeah, like, you do it. I'm here. If you need me, I'm here. Otherwise, do your thing. Of course, I'm an idiot. Did no studying. I walked out with C's. She goes, oh, how does that feel? How does that feel? And I'm like, yes, you know how it feels, mum. And so then she's like, okay, so now you done your way and you're fucked up. Yeah, she was into that. Now we're doing it my way. You understand? I'm like, I understand. Because I think she knew I was a person that, like, some people would get the C's and D's and be like, cool, mum, yeah, I'll carry on. But I think she knew that I'd be like, whoa, no, no, no. I'm not happy with this. So she tricked me. It's fine. It works. And I still do it to people now. Like my mentees, I'll be like, yeah, do it your way. Go on, do the refurb. Don't do any. Like, go on, do it. See what happens.
mhm.
And 6 months later, I'm like laughing when you're crying. I think it works. And so once she did that,
Mhm.
yeah, it wasn't like a tiger mum. It wasn't like crazy, but it was enough that then I would say all A's at GCSE, maybe 1 or 2 A stars, I think. A level, all A's, almost an A star.
Wow.
University was a 2-1, very close to a first. I kind of wasn't fussed at uni. I lost interest. So yeah, academically, it was not like a genius, not like top of the class, but I think in my school and it was pretty good, and I have to thank her for that.
What were some of the topics or subjects that you chose? So at GCSEs, you've got to choose between sciences and certain other topics. What
Mhm.
were some of the ones that you homed into?
Science. I to this day, I was just listening to a podcast on the way here about like health and fitness, and it was very scientific, and I love it. So I always have loved it. I think I've that analytical mind has
Yeah.
always kind of been with me, and it just fascinates me that like you and I are these bodies, but there's a million things going on
Wow.
just for me
Yeah.
to lift my finger molecularly on a muscular level. Like we're just incredible. Nature's incredible. And I like the environment, so it links to that and plants and things like that. So picked science. I also picked. I think you could pick languages. I picked Spanish, which I can speak to this day.
Hola. ¿Qué
No, hola, ¿qué
pasa?
tal?
All right, that's
Nada
it,
más.
mate.
So I can speak it kind of enough to get me by. I wouldn't say fluent, but it's definitely like that linguistic thing has stayed with me because it's communication. So I like, and also I think in this country there's a disrespectful thing. There's many disrespectful things, but people from like I think in particular this country do is they go abroad, they don't learn any part of the language, and they're shocked when a Spanish person doesn't speak English. It's like, bruv, they're Spanish. You go to Italy, don't speak English, like they're Italian. And so for me, that always annoyed me
Mm.
seeing that. And I was like, right, when I go on holiday, I am going to know the language. Like even if I have to sit there for 4 hours just to get it, I'm doing it. So that kind of stuck with me, like to the point where if I'm going somewhere, I will learn bits. Um, and so yeah, languages and science were the biggest things. I think I did media maybe at A level, which links to like the social media branding, but love science. I studied it at university as well.
Yeah, we need to have a chat later. Nice, bro. Nice. And what did you study at university?
I studied biochemistry, which was a
Biochemistry.
combination of biology and chemistry because I loved, but it was a combination of the bits of both that I loved. Because I didn't like parts of chemistry, like the maths. I hate maths, and the kind of inorganic side. So it took both and basically put it together. And I was also thinking, okay, it's a good degree that employers consider. So even if I don't go into science, I can
Mm.
do X, Y, Z because they see it as like an academic degree. So I was kind of thinking bigger picture as well.
So I can see you didn't do a lot of the business and economic sort of side of things.
Nothing, no,
Yeah. But then
no.
I can see how it does link and relate. Like obviously you're doing a lot of formulas, right? A lot of
Feels like it,
patterns.
yeah.
A lot of patterns. But what I also like about you, Tej, is how open-minded you are. And I
Mhm.
think it's really important to be that way because there's not just one right answer. So if you are going on holiday, why not be open-minded to learn something about somebody else and their culture?
Yeah, of
Because we can always learn. And I'm 36 right now, but I'm always a student of life.
course.
I'm still going on courses. Do you know what I mean? Because I want to learn something more and add more, tools to my armor really all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's great that yeah, like do you travel much?
Yes. Well, me and my wife travel probably 3 or 4 times a year. Usually Italy. We just love Italy, and we're just like, oh, where should we go? And we're like Italy. So we've done like a road trip. We've been to every region in Italy apart from two.
Okay.
We should be going back this year. I love Italian food. I can eat way more pasta than is safe to eat, but and I cook as well. So
Nice.
I love being in Italy because
Nice.
culturally cooking, and they're very passionate and very particular about their cooking, and I'm like that about everything. And so when I go there, I just feel like I'm with people who like I understand. Like when I speak to people about food here, or like my wife, she's like, "Yeah, it's really nice." I'm like, "Yeah, but did you pick up the rosemary? Did you get the?" I mean, like it's got good. I'm like, "Oh, come on," So like, it for me, it's a beautiful place. Love
Yes.
the language, love the people. So we try to travel as much as we can. We got married last year, so we went on honeymoon to Italy and to the
Lovely.
Maldives, which was just
Nice.
paradise. She's studying a PhD, so once she stops that and is working, we should be able to travel a lot more. But with deadlines and like writing a thesis, it's been quite tough. But yeah, as much as I can, I will try to, because what you said earlier is so important, like discovering cultures, learning things, because like variety is the spice of life. Like
Hmm.
you stay in one place your whole life, you don't get to experience the 7.3 billion people on this planet and all the
It's
different
true.
cultures. Like, and culture changes. Like in Italy, all the regions have like different cultures, different dialects,
Of
sometimes different
course.
spices.
The
It's
south is very different to the north,
yeah,
right?
like, and it's people don't realize this. And so we've got passports. If we're fortunate to have passports, like let's use them.